Is your organization a Microsoft shop and you really want to use OpenAI but are a little hesitant to just interface with them directly? Well, Azure has you covered. You could use Azure to tap into OpenAI and then take advantage of Azure's more corporate security policies and rest a little more assured with this approach. And the good news, well, you could bring it all into Msty. In Msty Studio, you could add Azure OpenAI as a provider. And then, of course, to add Azure OpenAI to Msty, you first have to have an Azure account. If you don't have one already, sign up for an Azure account. It's pretty easy, straightforward, and free to start. Once you have your account, you may see Azure Services and Azure OpenAI displayed right here. But if you do not, what you can do up in this search bar, just type in OpenAI. And then you'll see Azure OpenAI and click on that. On the Azure AI Services page, what we'll do next is click on Create Azure OpenAI. And this is going to take us through a setup wizard, so I'll just go through this relatively quick. All you need to do is get through this wizard, and then at the very end, click on Create. And now we can see that our deployment is in progress. It will just take a couple seconds. Once the deployment is complete, you could click on Go to Resource, or if you're on the table, just click on the new resource that was created. And within the details page, you'll see this button right here at the top that says go to Azure AI Foundry Portal. Go ahead and click on that. From this screen, what we'll want to do is create a deployment. You could also click on deployments in the left menu right here and essentially get to the same area. Let's go ahead and click on create a deployment. And this is going to bring up a list of models that you could select. For this demo, let's find GPT-4o Mini, and we're going to select this model and then click on confirm. And then click on deploy. And the deployment process will take about a minute or so. And let's click on this deployment tab. And we see that the deployment has succeeded. All right, let's click on the model name to get some more details. Where it says endpoint, this has two very important pieces of information that we'll want to bring over into Msty. One is the target URI, and then the other is the key, which is the API key. If we are to expand this full URI out, and the tooltip kind of shows it a little bit here, a few things that we want to take note of, which we could also see over here on the right, is the endpoint, which you'll also want to include OpenAI and deployments when copying and pasting over to Msty. The other thing that you'll want to take note of is the API version. You'll need to explicitly put this into Msty when setting it up. So again, the two main things that we want to capture is the target URI and the key. So now that we have this information, let's go to Msty. In Msty Studio here on the left menu, we'll click on Model Hub. And then on the right, click on Add Provider. And then in the Models Provider list, select Azure OpenAI. And then in here, we'll want to add the API key. And then you could add in the base URL, but I'm going to leave that one empty. It says required, but really you just need one or the other in terms of base URL or resource name. I'm going to go ahead and add in the resource name, which is essentially the A record of the base URL. The next thing to add is the API version. So I'm going to add that in there. And then followed up by the model. So whatever model you deployed is the one that you want to select here. This is just going to provide a list of all the GPT models essentially, but you need to specifically select the one that you deployed out in Azure OpenAI. So we deployed out GPT-4o Mini, so I will select that one. And that's all that we need. So I'm going to go ahead and click on Add Provider. And we now see Azure OpenAI as a model provider, but let's go now and give it a little chat. All right, we'll click on the model provider and scroll down to where we see Azure OpenAI. And then let's select GPT-4o Mini and say hello. And that's it, and that's all. That's how you could add Azure OpenAI and start chatting away.